All right, let's welcome back to Straight Fire, one of the foremost draft experts, NFL analysts out there, and we got to get him while we got a shot. You know, he could be going to an NFL front office any minute now. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, does a lot of stuff with the Chargers ahead of their big playoff game. DJ, how was your holiday, man?
It was great, man. It's fun to have, kind of family all together. As my kids get older, they kind of start scattering around the country a little bit. So I've turned into that old man who's like cherishing the moments as the kids all come back. So I've enjoyed that. And it's been, for all the hand wringing, and I hear it from all sides about where college football is nowadays, with the end of the NFL season having a lot of drama coming down the home stretch, and then these
Oh yeah,
college football playoffs have been. I've enjoyed the heck out of it, and every time I click refresh on my computer, there's no other big name player that's going to some other school. So
yeah,
it's been.
yeah,
I think it's been fun to be a fan during
for
this last
sure.
month.
I'll say this: I don't know anybody who had this Final Four or even three of the teams, not even two, really. Nobody had Indiana, Ole Miss. I'll ask you this: we're recording Thursday afternoon, so we'll tackle the Oregon Indiana game real quick.
Yeah.
But it's one of those games where it's like, I don't want to say it's for the number one pick, but is there a world where if Dante Moore comes out, lights up Indiana, 300 yards, three touchdowns, they win, and looks better than Mendoza, then we have like an actual discussion about the number one overall pick? Or are the people you talk to like pretty cemented? Listen, we've seen more all season. He's no number one pick.
Yeah, I would say that would take a Herculean effort on his part to get past that. And again, I mean, I don't have all 32 teams on the record, but I've got a lot of friends in a lot of different organizations, and everybody that I talk to has Mendoza clearly over him. But we've seen it in the past. It's a big stage. It's a big opportunity. So we'll see what happens there. I like Dante Moore. To me, I think there's a pretty good gap there, though, with Mendoza. I think Mendoza is just further along in his development. And, so I would be in that Mendoza camp. But hey, he goes out there and somehow lays his first egg in Indiana, and then Dante Moore, goes off. It'll at least be a discussion on a show that
Yeah.
you're on. I know for a fact that'll be
Yeah.
that's A block
Well,
material stuff right there. It'd be fun.
Coward's a big Vegas guy.
Yeah,
So, Brady comes on the show. But man,
they're
it's just
they're
it's
they've
getting a
got
little
some work
crazy.
to do there, pal. Like I've seen that team
Dumb.
twice this year. There's not like I always think it'd be like a fun graphic. I've tried pushing this on the TV side of things, but I couldn't get anybody to like the idea. But I always think of these jobs like I think of an image of a bus, right? Like think about like a high school football team. You all pile on the bus to go to a game, and I like to say, okay, each job, who are the key people on each bus, like who are like the key players that are going to be on the bus when we're trying to drive to win something meaningful. These guys are still going to be on this bus. And when you look at the Raiders, you're like, oh my gosh, we only have like four passengers on that thing. Like there's not a lot of guys who are going to be a part of the next, quote unquote great Raider team. They just don't have a lot of those guys.
So does that make it not really an attractive job? I mean, obviously Baltimore is a great job.
Yeah.
The New York Giants, as you hyped on social
Yeah.
media, is a damn good job. Arizona's got a lot of pieces. I just, and that division the Raiders play in, it's like, geez, if
Yeah,
you
I
don't have
would
a
say
quarterback.
it's a good discussion to me. Personally, I think I would rather have the Raiders job than the Cardinals job. I look at that division's got three playoff teams. They are in a mess with Kyler Murray to try and sort that out. The Raiders, I mean, look, the biggest problem any bad team has is more than likely the quarterback position, and the Raiders are at least positioned to solve that. So you can come in, you get Francisco Mendoza. At least you have that kind of pillar. You can invest in, and to me, I would invest solely on the offensive side of the ball. I would hire my head coach, tell him when he hires his defensive coordinator that, send him some C's candy and say, I apologize. It's going to be a year before you get any good players, because everybody that we go out and get in free agency in this draft is going to be about supporting this quarterback. And we've already got now Bowers. Now we've got Genty. Now we have the quarterback. And now we're going to spend all our resources on offensive linemen and a receiver. That to me sounds more appealing than Arizona kind of a little bit twisting in the wind there. You're going to roll with Jacoby Brissett going forward. Like, what do you want to do there?
So what I view Arizona, and laugh at me if you will, as like a Denver Broncos situation before Bo Nix, right? So you got some offensive pieces, decent, not great. I think Arizona's got good pieces, running back, receiver, obviously the tight end is a stud. And the defense has pieces. It didn't stop anybody because like seven guys were out starting midseason. But if you're able to get a Malik Willis, could Arizona turn it around just a little bit? Is there a world where maybe they're a 9-8 team next year?
Um, I, I still think
In the
there's,
division, though, that
yeah,
yeah,
that's just a tough division. They didn't win a game in that division this year. So, I mean, I look, I'm getting ready to travel this weekend to go watch a team that I saw last year. The Chargers beat the Patriots 41-7 in
that's
November.
right.
And if you would have told me that 1 year later, a little more than a year later, the Chargers would be traveling to take on the number 2 seed, the probable MVP of the National Football League, and Drake May, a 14-win team, I'd have said, you're insane. That's
Yeah.
too fast. You can't do that fast. But it turns out when you have an amazing draft class, you hire the right coach and you put some pieces around that quarterback and the right play caller, like it all came together. So I'll never say never. I'll never, the Cardinals next year could be a 10-win team. That sounds a little crazy to me, but not crazier than the Patriots and the turnaround that they've had.
Yeah. I mean, did anybody have the Jacksonville Jags at like 13 wins?
No,
Bears? I
no.
mean, nobody had the Bears. It's a weird time in the league. I'm reading some stuff, DJ, about how defenses are now taking over. It used to
Yeah.
be, hey, you got to have an elite offense. It's like, look at the best teams. Broncos, Seahawks, Texans are real big threats with nasty defenses. Are you seeing like that trend emerging?
Yeah, I think even more so, just like an overall physicality is back. Jacksonville, I saw them up close and personal. That is a physical team along the line of scrimmage, and that's kind of fueled their run that they've been on. I know Trevor gets a lot of the attention and the love for that. Liam Cohen's done a great job, but they've amassed physical offensive linemen, physical defensive linemen. They play a physical brand of football. That's been what we've seen in Houston, especially on the defense. That's the best defense I've seen in probably the last 5 or 6 years. I mean,
Wow.
there's no weakness there. Like you'd go position by position. And to me, like the off the ball linebackers are never talked about because the secondary is awesome. The front, everybody knows about those 2 edge rushers, elite guys. But like you see them in live in person, you see Al Shair flying around the field, and you see Henry To'o flying around the field, and Jalen Petre's their nickel, who's a great player. Like that
Oh,
defense
yeah.
is awesome. That is a great defense.
All right, so let's quickly talk Chargers Patriots. I'm on the Chargers here. I like them to win outright. I'm sure you've seen all the numbers on the joke of a Patriots schedule. I think they faced
Uh,
7 quarterbacks who were either benched or backups this year. Um, Meanwhile, the Chargers rested and healthy off last week. The offensive line, their biggest weakness, isn't going to be a huge weakness because the Patriots don't have much of a pass rush. What are you expecting in this one?
I think it's going to be fascinating. To me, I think the Chargers are going to have a chance to score some points, and they've shown. You go back to the Dallas game where Dallas could not get to Herbert, even though these starting tackles were out, and they couldn't get to him, and Herbert threw it all over the lot, and it was
Yeah.
Ladd McConkey, and it was Keenan Allen, it was Quentin Johnston, and Gadsden, the tight end. They have a lot of weapons. It's just it's almost been disguised by the fact they've had to try and help out these tackles. So I think with what you're saying there in terms of the matchup, I think there's a chance for the Chargers to get going a little bit offensively. Then it just comes down to me. The whole game is, can the Chargers limit big plays, which in almost every single game they've done this year, except for the Houston game where they give up the 2 big shots early in that game to the 2 Iowa State rookies. But after that, they shut Houston down. So if they can come out and just play their standard defense the way they've played it the vast majority of the season, and not let Drake May, pop a 50-yard throw, not let Henderson get loose on a 40, 50-yard run, and make this offense, who's excellent, but make this young, inexperienced offense have to travel the distance. I think they've got a good shot. So it's all matchups. Styles make fights, and I think it's very true in this NFL postseason. And I think from the Chargers, looking at it from their standpoint, it's a really good Patriots team, but stylistically, I think it fits them quite well.
Yeah. I see some of Jesse Minter's stats. I think they're top 5 in the red zone, top 5 fewest explosive plays or 20-yard plays. Could this be the showcase game for him where it's like, hey man, he just shut down the supposed MVP or runner up, whatever, on the road. And next thing you know, he's Minter's like probably the number 2 or 3 guy after Harbaugh or Stefanski. And he's going to be a head coach somewhere next year. Is that kind of how it works, you think?
I think that decision, to me, that hay's in the barn. You go into
Oh,
Denver. Denver has everything to play for. They're at home. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. You rest your starters. You don't see Derwin James out there, Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, no Denzel Perriman, no Deion Henley. You know how many touchdowns the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton and Bo Nix scored? 0. They kept them.
yeah.
They didn't score a touchdown. They had a pick 6 and some field goals with
Yeah.
all the backups. I'm like, well, if you want a statement game from Jesse Minter, it came in a loss in week 18. I mean, and he's done it throughout his whole year. You know what? what's going to help him more than anything that Jesse's done, and I think he's been great, and I do think he's going to be a head coach in this cycle. Is remember him the timeline together was him and Mike McDonald. They were together. There was the Baltimore connection. There was the Michigan connection, and look at the success that he's had with a very similar temperament, a very similar background and training. To me, that's like your proof of concept you need if you're wondering how Jesse Minter is going to be as a head coach.
That's a great comp. I forgot about that. So let me ask, and again, you know these guys and what they're looking for. Do you think Minter, a defensive guy, analyzes like what the Dolphins have, what the Ravens have, and is targeting, and that matters significantly or not really? Like the Tennessee Titans don't have anything on defense. Ravens, they got Kyle Hamilton and some pieces, but is he looking in that granular fashion? Like, okay, this is something I can work with. Or is it much bigger than that, and that's just a small slice of the pie?
Most of these coaches, they start, first of all, you want to have a good owner. That matters. You don't want to have someone who's going to fly off the handle and is not predictable. Like an unpredictable owner is probably the number one disqualifying thing to make a job desirable. So I would start with the owner. Either the presence of a quarterback or a very identifiable plan to solve that problem becomes important in that. Going forward. And then I think after that, you're just kind of looking for a good young nucleus of players that, again, kind of that bust theory. Who are they have a key core group of guys that I can build around, and we can go from there. But, when you think about these coaches doing their homework on these jobs, they all have agents. They all have big, powerful agencies that are giving each of these guys packets on every single organization, from ownership to who your general manager is, the background on him, the roster, the salary cap situation that you're walking into. So they're going to have all the information they need to make that decision. But in my conversations with guys over the last 20 plus years, that first conversation always starts with the owner.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you look at the top of the draft, you're the draft expert, of the top 6 teams drafting, Daniel, 5 of them have head coaching openings. And if you want to look at ownership groups, I mean, the Raiders ownership group has been a disaster. What are they on, third coach in like 5 years, 4 years?
Paying a lot of people.
Yeah, Jets, we don't even need to talk about Woody Johnson. Arizona, they've had some issues, let's just say. I don't even know what's going on with the Tennessee ownership. The New York Giants has been a disaster for 5-10 years. And the Browns need no introduction. So are those like not like the Falcons are the interesting one to me. I thought they drafted well. They should have been a playoff team this year. A couple of bad losses. And they got everything. I just don't know about Penix, Bijan, Drake London. Like they've got a big time nucleus. Is that, you think, one of the more attractive jobs that maybe Minter would be a good fit?
Yeah, you have to kind of, look, you're going to have to bring in somebody else. If Cousins is going out and if you're going to have Penix, you can't just say, well, he'll be healthy, we'll be fine. You need to bring in some healthy competition there in the form of a veteran, or you're going to have to draft somebody else. But you need to have an insurance plan there. But that's not a tall hill to climb. I mean, you got the 8-win team that won that division last year. So you could very easily put the right quarterback or the right head coach in place there. And if just keeping Penix healthy for the season, you could see them winning that division, no question, next year. So that makes that, an attractive job, in my opinion. I do think if you look at some of the guys that have had success this year, the first year coaches, think about the guys we have in the playoffs. Vrabel inherited a very talented quarterback going into his second year. Liam Cohen inherited, Trevor had his struggles, but that's a number 1 overall pick. And that's a lot of talent that he brings to the table there. So you're seeing kind of look at Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson goes there, and Caleb's really, really talented. So that's why jobs like Tennessee interest me, because I do think that there's still a lot of ability in a young quarterback there that would be fun to build around. It's why I've mentioned the Giants. If they can keep Jackson Dart from getting into violent collisions, I think he's got a chance to be really, really good. Yeah. That's what makes those 2 jobs pretty interesting to me.
To go to the draft and kind of the Giants. So when you put your tweet out there, I was like kind of stunned. Like, really? Yeah. I didn't see a ton from Dart, but then you look at some of the advanced stats, and he wasn't bad.
They had nobody, Jason. They had nobody.
I know, that's the thing. He lost Neighbors, lost Scattaboo, and it's like, okay, so maybe there's something here, right? But then I hear all this chatter. Well, and it's probably from Joe Shane, who's trying to save his bacon. We're going to be looking at quarterbacks. We're not ruling out anything. And it just feels like a mixed message. If Harbaugh takes that job, I think that's what most people are predicting. He's probably going to want his own GM, right? I mean, Shane is the guy, I believe, who gave Daniel Jones that insane contract punted on Saquon. Obviously, neither of those worked out, but he did draft Dart. And if memory serves, not a lot of people had Dart first round. I think you might have end of the first round.
I had him going to the Giants. I don't remember where exactly it was in that
Oh,
first round, but I had them trading up, taking him. So, I mean, he was in that range for me as a player in terms of where I had him overall. I think he was in the late 20s, early 30s on my overall list. So I didn't think it was a reach by any stretch, but
mm,
I think he showed enough promise. I was in the building for his first start, and I saw him kind of bring a lot of energy and juice into that place. He's very athletic. I think for all the love that Tyler Shuck has got for how well he played down the stretch in the games they won, I mean, not to be a numbers dork, but like pull up the numbers and put them side by side with Jackson Dart, he comes out quite favorably. It looks
yeah.
very similar. So I'm a believer in him. I think to me, and you watch, if Harbaugh does get that job, which I still think that that's a possibility. Miami is a very big possibility there as well. If Harbaugh did take that job with the Giants, the Harbaugh way, which I've got a chance to learn a lot more about being around Jim since he's come to the Chargers, is he will come in the door and he will say that Jackson Dart is the best player in the National Football League, and he will just just give him so much confidence. I mean, I've seen it. I saw it. Go back to Jim, going back to when everybody's been around, from Andrew Luck to Colin Kaepernick to JJ McCarthy to Justin Herbert. Like,
That's a good point.
they are very effusive, and I think it's smart. Like, the worst thing you can do is be wishy-washy on a guy. Like, I like
Yeah.
him, but he needs to prove himself. That's like, you got to give him the full stamp. And I think that's what you would see if you got that job.
But that's dangerous with Dart because as I'm sure you can tell, you got young kids. Well, not that young, but he's got that aura. Everybody knows Jackson Dart's a cool guy. He's on the
Yeah.
scene, dating the IG hotties. Like that. He's got a lot going on. If you pump him up even more, like Justin Herbert's a pretty mild mannered guy. I don't Dart. You see him at the podium. He really thinks his shit doesn't stink. Come on, come on. You
Yeah,
see
I
him.
mean, but there's difference to do it as a person versus a player. And maybe that's like, hey, this guy can be, maybe it's a combination of a belief but a challenge of saying this guy has all the ability to be the best player in the league. The best player has, like, that's the type of things that coaches do, is trying to feel like this is all out there and capable for you. Now we got to put in the work. And the thing that I have heard about him, for whoever he may be dating or whatever image he may, present at a podium, everything that I've heard from guys who've been around him at the college level at two different schools and with the Giants is the guy works his tail off.
Mhm.
And obviously he's incredibly tough. He needs to dial the toughness back a little bit and stop
Yeah.
trying to run guys over.
Yeah. So last year, you mentioned you nailed Dart. Tyler Shuck, I don't think anybody had in the first round. I think the biggest shock was Shador, where most people pegged his first round, drops to the fifth. Do you see any world where that happens to a Ty Simpson, a Dante Moore, obviously not Mendoza? But is there a world where that happens? Because, I mean, DJ, I know you're looking at the quarterbacks and you haven't
Yeah.
analyzed all of them. I'm of the belief, and this is a hot take I'm still workshopping, but I think some of these middle round guys could have value because they were overvalued back in August, like Nussmeier with 1 billion starts. I know he got benched. Klubnik is the guy I'm really circling for the Jets in like the fourth round.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Drew Aller, Penn State. I know the
I
numbers
throw
aren't there and
Carson
they
Beck
didn't
in
look.
there too.
Yeah, let's
Carson
toss Beck in there.
as we're recording this, is still alive with a chance to win a national championship, which would be a heck of a closing argument for a guy who started a ton of games. And like, you look at his numbers against quality opponents, like, look, he was along for the ride with some of those games at Georgia, but he's been
Yeah.
in the big stage and a lot of big games and a lot of big moments. I know he's kind of been a popular punching bag, but you look up and kind of watch him go on this run with Miami, and he's made some plays. The Texas A&M game wasn't great, but the last playoff game that he was in, he played pretty well, and we'll see how he finishes up here. But I think he's in the mix, at least in that competition, to be the third quarterback. Ty Simpson's going to be an interesting one because I had watched him, early and saw some good things, and then played so poorly down the home stretch. And so I made some calls to buddies at Alabama and was like, you got to help me. What am I missing here? Like, I was very kind of surprised that he came out. I'm like, well, look, he had a back injury. He had a bursa sack injury on his elbow, on his throwing arm, like late in the year. And he was just trying to gut it out and play through that. So that gives you a little bit of encouragement that maybe that helps explain away some of the late season play. But he hasn't started a ton of games, and the lack of a resume in that regard has always been a little bit of a red flag. So, where we are right now, this is January 8th as we're recording this. I would say would be a little bit of an upset if he was a first round pick, but it's a
Oh,
long time from now till April.
Yeah, I mean, I in my mock I had the Steelers going with Ty Simpson, which doesn't feel like a fit. I just think Rodgers is done, and my guess is Tomlin moves on as well. There's a big reboot going on there, but so
There's some
so
love,
I
by the way. There's some love in the Steelers, with the Steelers, and wanting to see what they have and Howard and Will Howard, who they picked later in the
really the
draft
Ohio
last year out
State
of
kid.
Ohio State. Yeah, he's a big because look, I mean, I've worked in that division for a couple different teams. It's a division where you need kind of a bigger, more rugged quarterback. You think about Big Ben, you think about Flacco. I mean, Burrow's all day tough, but he's been in and out of the lineup there.
Yeah,
It almost, Carson Palmer had a lot of success there in Cincinnati during his run. It
a good
almost
point.
kind of requires one of these bigger, more physical guys.
You see 14 of the 16 and I'm sorry, 12 of the 14 NFL quarterbacks are first round picks. The only two that weren't Hurts and Purdy. Do you think that plays into the part in the draft room where it's like, listen, man, the only guys who are making the playoffs are really first rounders. After that, like, what are we doing? And I again, you're in draft rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of just a weak statement that 12 of 14 are first round picks?
No, I think it's pretty telling, and I think it's damning, whatever you want to say. It's just the outcasts are the rarity to be able to hit on a guy outside the first round and have him become what Brock Purdy become. We'll never see anything like that ever again. The last pick in the draft with Jalen Hurts, like those are the oddities, and the era where we had before that, which was the Dak Prescotts, the Kirk Cousins, the Russell Wilsons. We had a lot more guys outside the first
Yeah.
round. That doesn't happen anymore, and I think that there's some different reasons for it. I think one of the reasons is because of NIL and the transfer portal that these guys get identified. A Joe Burrow, who's not necessarily getting the opportunity he wants at Ohio State, he goes to LSU and then ends up vaulting all the way up. All these guys who've transferred, Baker, who did, had to go where he needed to go to get it done. Kyler, to me, like those guys would have been okay. He had to wait. He only played his last year, or okay, he was kind of middle of the road. This is a second. We'll take a shot at him. We see the ability, but it's kind of a little bit of a gamble. Third, fourth, fifth round pick. Well, now that guy's gone to where he got his opportunity. There's a lot more resume to go off of. It's not as much. It's not okay. Well, they haven't played the same competition. He's at an off the radar school. That doesn't happen anymore. Like I don't think.
Interesting.
I just don't think it's anything at all like what we've had in the past. And the fact that these guys can get paid now, I think you're seeing a lot more guys stay longer. Whereas we look at some of the mistakes and the guys who haven't necessarily panned out, like Trey Lance would be a great example. In the height of the NIL world right now, in the portal world, even I think he was COVID. I think that was kind of a weird situation because of COVID. But that would have been, he would have gone somewhere and made $5 million in the SEC, and we would have got to see him play for a couple more years. So that those
He might have
those
been
things
better.
change. Yeah, I think so.
We could kind of wind down this wide receiver room. I don't know, man. I look at the trenches and I feel like that's where the value is. I wonder if that bumps down a Carnell Tate a little bit. A Jordan Tyson, Makai Lemon. Does that bump them down a little because the trenches are really what we're seeing significant in the league with the too high shell now?
Yeah, I think I think those guys are really highly rated players in this draft, though. So to me, you're going to have a tough decision, because I think they're going to carry higher grades, higher draft grades than some of these offensive linemen. But I think the best decision to make for those young quarterback teams that are picking up there is going to be to lean more towards that offensive line. So maybe it pushes them down a little bit, but if it does, you'll see a run on them and you'll see them all go flying off the board, because there are some teams who are in the middle portion of the draft who are in a little bit better situation along that offensive line. And those guys are just going to be by far the highest rated guys.
Yeah. And Jeremiah
I'm a
Love.
Makai Lemon guy, by the way. Plant my flag on that kid.
Yeah. So in the 20s is too low for Makai Lemon?
I think that's to me. He's not gonna be on when my top 50 list comes out in a couple weeks. He ain't gonna be in the 20s. I can tell you that.
No. Top 50. He's certainly top like 10.
Yeah.
But I just meant like for the Buffalo Bills, that would be. Anyways, wrap up Jeremiah Love. We've seen Gibbs totally dominate in the league. Bijan Robinson, obviously Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, running backs, their value seems to be back. But some of these guys, like they're going to ready-made teams. Like Gibbs was a plug and he doesn't need to carry the team. What do you think that does for the Love handicap? Like I'm looking at these top like 6 teams. I don't see a world where any of those could take a running back in the top with their top pick.
Well, I think last year was a great exercise. You saw Ashton Genty is a very talented player. And the thing is, people, they don't say it properly, in my opinion, because they say, oh, Ashton Genty proved that's why you don't take a running back that high in the draft. And my argument to that is no, no, no. This is like when I would go to Sunday school when I was a kid, and they would do that. They give you this big jar, and then they'd give you big rocks, little rocks, sand, and water, and they'd go, "How do you fit all this stuff into this jar?" It's kind of like how do you fit, get your life organized and put together. It's like, well, you got to get the big rocks in first. If you put the sand in there and the little rocks in, the big rocks don't fit. So you got to build it properly. You put the big rocks in, then you get the little rocks, and then you get the sand, and then you get the water, and you fit it all in the jar. Yeah. These teams don't have offensive lines, and they're drafting a running back, and their team's not ready to win. It's a total waste of time. When you're Detroit and you've been investing in your offensive line, and you've got Decker and Penei Sewell and Glass, now they got all those guys. Okay, drop a running back in, he explodes and takes off. All of a sudden, now I guess it's smart to take a running back in the top 15. That's the wrong way to frame that argument. It's you got to take care of the first things first, and then you can insert that guy. And the last thing I'd say on the running backs, like J-Mac, to me, the goal should be, we can all agree that their careers are not long, right? That they're, especially the prime of their careers, is not long. I don't want to waste one carry. I want, when I take a running back, when I invest in a running back in the draft, the clock starts and it's 4, 5, 6 years, for that prime. I want the first carry I give him to matter. I don't want him to take that first carry on a 3-win team. That's a waste of time.
Totally agree. Good stuff. Daniel Jeremiah, he'll be at Chargers, Patriots, and then he'll dig into the draft. Will you be at the Super Bowl? Obviously, yeah, in Santa Clara.
No. I get to do the halftime show at NFL Network. So I don't know who the halftime show is this year on television. You could choose to watch that with 99.9% of the country, or you could flip over and watch us, where we do not have access to show video highlights of the first half. You can watch us talk about the first half, though. That'll be some
in studio
stuff.
Or is your family at least with you?
No, this is me and Rhett Lewis. We knock this thing out almost every year. You'd be shocked how many people watch that thing, by the way. It actually does quite well. I think it's people that
football.
I think it's some people that aren't like that like the halftime entertainment isn't their cup of tea, and I just want my football. So hey, come on over. Yeah, we can't show any highlights, but we're going to talk a lot about it. I don't even know who the act is.
Oh, real quick, by the way, are you still playing pickup basketball or no? Because we got a spot on the team.
I would love to, buddy. I just shoot. Once the Achilles went down, it became horse and golf. So yeah, shooting horse, and then go out there and play golf. I don't hurt myself.
Makes sense. No pickleball?
No, because I've talked to some orthos, some team orthos, and I'm like, hey, what are the pickleball injury situations here? Because that could be kind of funny. He's like, I'm telling you, it's replaced like racquetball and soccer. It's like we're getting tons of Achilles coming through here. People playing pickleball. Be careful out there, buddy. I don't want to get hurt.
I know. I'm nervous. All right, man. Thanks a lot. Have a great year. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
See you, bud.